right, nice job. Good set. Let's do some social kick.
Yeah, we're live, guys.
Oh, we are live.
How about that?
Yeah, we're back.
Gentlemen?
Episode 2.
I think we got a name. I mean, should we christen our name?
Ooh.
Yeah, why not? So let's cheers with what we're drinking. What are we drinking today, Luke?
Yeah.
A San Diego brewery, isn't it, John?
It is. Beautiful
hazy
brewery
IPAs.
down south.
I am unfortunately not partaking. I'm a little too hungover from the night before.
Yeah, birthday boy. What were you drinking last night?
Lots of tequila.
Yeah, uh-oh. That's all
Patron.
right. Justin's
Patron.
man card got revoked.
How old do I look, Brian?
So this is an IPA. Is that how they say it?
It depends if you're in Brazil on the beach.
Hazy IPA.
It's a hazy IPA from San Diego by Modern Times, which I was in San Diego last weekend. And San Diego's become quite a hub for swimming.
John, what'd you
I find.
pull over there?
And then
on
John
my
just
left
pulled
shoulder?
in a monkey shoulders.
You know, I decided to bring a scotch that I could pronounce this time. So this is one my wife got me a while ago, and I drank it all up pretty quick for being a very affordable blended scotch, and it's the ever popular monkey shoulder.
See no evil, hear no evil.
There you go. I'll just have to.
So it turns
it.
out the Modern Times beer is a vegan beer. Is that a vegan liquor you have?
Of course it is.
It will be.
Oh, man. Anyway, shall we christen our name?
Yeah, we were thinking about something that we all tend to do. We always get in trouble by our coaches. You know, and as swimmers, we spend our time by ourselves underwater and in water and clogged ears, and we get to see our close friends who we suffer with, and we're family. So when we touch a wall, we have 5 seconds to go before the next push off. We might make a remark, but
Right.
the most times we get to chat to each other. When, guys?
Is during our social kick.
Social
Right,
kick.
yeah.
Or
Dryland.
Dryland.
Dryland, that is true.
Dryland coach extraordinaire Justin.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
pretty chatty, huh?
They can be chatty.
Marissa Watts of Swim South Bay loves you, man.
Oh, she
Yeah,
does.
yeah. So sorry about you. But we figure we call ourselves Social Kick. I mean, we all know what we do and what our coaches don't like us to do, but it's what helps us bring us together.
That's what swimmers do.
Shout out to Marissa and Swim South Bay.
Hey,
Yeah,
cheers
cheers.
to the Social Kick
Cheers.
podcast.
Yes,
Oh,
Chris
and heart,
and-
Justin.
Glug, 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 glug. Anyway, what did we cover last time, guys? We covered what we wanted to accomplish with this podcast, and a little bit. We talked a little bit about ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm. We talked about our last race ever, and did we know it was our last race? We talked about journey to get there.
The journey to get there. We went through that a little bit,
Mhm.
right? And today we will be covering a couple other things. In the news, though, there is some fast swimming, right? That's Steve West 104. Right?
Well, what is today? Today is June 23rd,
It's
2019.
It's Olympic Day.
It's Olympic Day.
Yeah.
1 year out from the U.S. Olympic trials. We're pretty close to Tokyo 2020, which will be a fantastic games, I think.
I hope so. Hopefully a little more organized and linear.
Uh-huh.
I'll remember all the lead up to Rio and the hectic stuff. You were at Rio, right,
I
Luke?
was at Rio. It took me
Fanboy made it to Rio.
I know.
about 2 hours each night to get to the park. It was insane
Really?
from where I was staying. I was staying on the cruise ships out in the ports where they
Yeah.
put out the NBA players, and it took 2 hours to get across town. It was insane.
Are you going to Tokyo next year?
We'll find out, right? We should all be going to Tokyo.
Oh
You
man,
should.
No,
we
Tokyo
should.
is one of my favorite cities in the world. If
Yeah.
any of you haven't been to Tokyo online, I highly recommend it. The
Yeah.
civility of the people, the empathy of the people is fantastic.
Yeah,
When's the last
Tokyo's
time
very
you were in
organized.
Tokyo?
2017.
Okay.
Yeah, I was there too. Yeah, in 2017, winter of 2017.
Got you guys.
And
beat.
you were
I was
last
there
year.
last winter.
Yeah,
I got
Have
the
they started
flu
any
there,
of the
man.
infrastructure and the facilities?
Yeah, they have. Yeah, they're moving along with them.
Okay.
We took the train, but we didn't really tour too much of it. But yeah, they're moving along.
Mhm.
Are they going to build their own train system? Like Australia built their own train to go out to Olympic Park.
Yeah, I forget if that was the plan or not,
Mhm.
but knowing Japanese culture and how it is,
Absolutely.
I would imagine they have a pretty well thought out plan.
It's
and
number
I'm
one thing.
interested to see
Yeah.
how it goes.
Transport. Number
It's a-
one thing, I think.
You know what's interesting? There's not as much like a controversy about hosting the Olympics there. You know, with Brazil, with what is it, doing the open water swimming there,
Yeah.
right? And then Beijing,
That's
building
true.
facilities there, right? There's not as much controversy, if I remember.
I thought it was
from what I'm hearing,
funny
right?
that I haven't heard a peep about facilities or the trouble with the schedule or, frankly, we've gone through, at least Athens and Beijing. I haven't heard so much about this with London, but with facilities,
last 3.
aging
Mm-hmm.
and, losing any of the future planning that had been intended for the facilities
Mhm.
and, Athens pool is overgrown and the
Rio
Bird's Nest
pool,
Stadium
yeah.
is
Yeah, they're
Messed
done.
up, yeah.
not using it at all, right?
So
In
what?
Beijing.
Yeah, I mean, what do you guys think about the investment to host an Olympics and sort of the requirements within the selection committee and
Well, that's a
how
huge
that's
topic.
how that's changed?
Well, so the company I work for right now, Cisco Systems, they are one of the major sponsors for the Tokyo Olympics. It's a big networking, and we're doing a film on the Olympics. And my team is going out there this week actually. So I'm really anxious to find out as they do the film about 1 year out, what's it like, how the city's shaping up, how much they had to invest. But for a major part of my life, I lived in Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
And Montreal in the 90s was still recovering from its debt from 1976.
Wow.
As we know.
Really?
And I mean, it was a massive investment. They dug a subway for it. They built an island for those Olympics. And then we all know about Greece.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what's
Put them
going
into
on.
tons of debt and had
Yeah.
a bunch of financial issues.
And I always heard about the rumor of like, let's just have like 3 or 4 cities, is it? That's where the Olympics
Right.
are held. And those Olympic cities.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the value of us spreading the Olympics around? Pros and cons. I see value, I see cons, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, it's like we're hinting at with all these countries the huge financial and infrastructure
Right.
investment, and I think these countries are excited to hopefully invigorate the population and maybe have long-term benefits from it all. But short-term, there are so many financial restraints and requirements that I think these developing countries that we saw with
With
Rio
Greece and
and
Brazil.
Yeah.
they've really had a tough time with it, and I don't know if it
Mhm.
has influenced or affected the athletes or the performance of the product, but
Mhm.
that's what it's turning into is the
Trinidad,
product.
where I come from, Trinidad and Tobago just got hosted its very first ever multi-sport games. They got hosted the Commonwealth Games, Junior Games for Commonwealth Games. And that's Trinidad and Tobago, which is a developing country, and that's a big achievement for us. And we've never supported that game. I'm worried about hosting the Commonwealth Games, Junior Games in Trinidad, far less, of course, Commonwealth Games or the Olympic Games.
Yeah.
The next 2 games are where? Paris and LA.
I believe so. Brian, maybe you might know a little bit more. What was the biggest international meet you ever got to go to?
I went to the short course world championships in England, Manchester.
Gotcha.
And I knew it was across the
But
pond.
Drink your beer, Brian. Come on now.
Very good.
It's somewhere overseas.
Drink that
right?
6.7%.
It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I went to that one and I swam in the World University Games in Thailand.
Mhm.
That's
and the
more
Pan
like
American Games.
yeah,
that's a multidisciplinary sports.
Yeah, it's very
Games.
similar
Sorry.
to.
So did they have to
what we're
make a
talking
new
about.
facility in Thailand, or was that already pretty much built up at the point? Or
No, that was built up. Pan American Games was built up. The Short Course Worlds was a temporary pool.
Where were
kinda
your Pan Ams again?
Olympic trials, Guadalajara, Mexico.
So, I mean, fairly mid-sized
Yeah.
cities, right? With Thailand and Guadalajara for multidisciplinary.
Yeah, I mean, Bangkok was a large city, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
Manchester, a fairly large city, and then Guadalajara is still a largish city. Frankly, I don't know the population for it, but I mean, there was at least infrastructure. You weren't too far, removed. Whereas I think, from the size of Port of Spain or
Unbelievable.
where the pool's going to be, it's going to be a little bit more remote and not as much infrastructure. And
You got to think of cycling. You got to
Mhm.
think of track and trail. I mean, we built 5 stadiums there 12 years ago, whenever, and most of the tracks are in a mess or are really bad shape. It takes a lot for our country to host any games for us. Does Tokyo rebuilding their stuff? Sorry, Idris.
Oh, I think it's just the grand jury of it, right? You gotta you have to make it look nice. You gotta make sure it's for all the athletes, not just one particular sport. I think that's the difficulty from what I'm hearing, because Brian, it sounds like when you go to a big meet, the pool's already there. It's already existed, so it doesn't matter. You go to a world-class facility, right?
It
doesn't
depends.
matter.
I mean, obviously, in the last 12 years or so, there's a large number of the huge either international meets or Olympic trials, or perhaps frankly, I don't know if there's other countries that are operating with temporary pools in different locations, but there could be. Seems like Australia typically uses already existing pools, and those are the U.S. and Australia, the 2 biggest trials meets for sure. So it may just be the U.S. is utilizing
I think it
temporary
is.
pools.
I mean, I know Australia with their, they were hosting Commonwealth or something like that. They were using a structured facility.
1997 World Championships short course were in Gothenburg, Sweden, and that's one of the first times I can remember them building a pool in a hockey arena.
Wow.
That's
Really?
amazing.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So-
I know if my
Yeah,
brother went to.
but
They
I
do
think
for
your
the
point is-
Omaha for the trials.
With the
now,
methods,
right?
yeah.
Sure, yeah. But I
Mhm.
mean, I guess I think what you're getting at is that typically most swimming meets, pure swimming meets, don't require a ton of infrastructure and investment in facilities or capex to make it happen.
So it's like
There's
kind of
obviously
like luxury.
huge volunteer effort that is a part of it, and I think that's found in also Grand Prix meets or Pro Swim series.
But Brian, did
and
you
that sort of
care
thing.
about where you swam? I mean, like you think about it, like different, like as an athlete, do we care about where these Olympics are held? Who matters, right? It's the spectators who are watching it live, who are watching it online, could be anywhere, sometimes
viewers,
and then the people who are
sponsors.
working it, and the people who are competing in it. So people who are working like in Brazil, those workers then get home till 4 a.m. in the morning
Right.
for working the swim meets, right? In Beijing, those swimmers had to complete finals in the morning. We talked about this in the last podcast. Do you care as a swimmer about where you are? I mean, you think about time zone you care about, humidity you care about,
That's true.
the village facilities, how good is the
food.
village,
I remember
and the
Beijing.
food.
They were talking a lot about food.
That's what we
and
care about more
McDonald's.
than just the place, right? Or no, do you?
Random rumor, I think going back to the food with Beijing, didn't Ryan Lochte eat like McDonald's every single day because he didn't trust the food? That's like some rumor in 08 or something.
So I
like
heard
that.
probably some McRib, baby.
Yeah.
Unvalidated.
Unvalidated.
And if Ryan Lochte
Ryan,
ever
tell
listens to
us.
this, I'm sorry. I don't know if that's the truth or not.
I'm not sure, but I think obviously as frankly human health and awareness to good and bad diets, and there's a wealth of we could unpack that for forever. But as that changes, sort of the global consciousness around health and wellness is on the uptrend for sure.
Right.
And as that happens, I think sport also follows that same trend. I mean there was carb loading for years and pasta parties that we went through the night before a swim meet. And I don't know about you guys, but as we've aged and, of course, Justin being more connected to the club scene of late, that sort of thing doesn't occur as much, right, as the awareness starts to change. So, I think there is a concern perhaps over the food or the time zone or the conditions,
The bus schedule,
and all of that. It's all a factor.
And if
for
I
sure
were
Every
it is.
meet we go to, it always has been every meet you go to. I mean, you care about how you sleep, where you sleep. Do you know that in Olympic Village, they're all single beds we get, right? And you share a room with somebody else. So you have two 6'6" people
American
in
dorm
dorms
room style for the most
with
part.
no furniture in your living room.
Yep.
If you have never been to a village, and it's basically there's nothing to do there. You just watch TV and in the internet. And in Brazil, it was hot.
Yeah, and in Rio, if I remember, there were like photos being taken of the actual rooms in the Olympic Village, and they weren't as fancy and nice as you'd think it'd be, right? Am I not?
No, I got lucky to spend a day there with the Trinidad team.
Yeah,
And
when I was with Team China
in Budapest.
Yeah, Budapest. The hotel was fine, but it was definitely not ideal. I remember getting back to the hotel with because with how I understand this works is you get randomly assigned, like there's hotels that bid that say they're going to host teams, and then they take great teams like teams that usually perform well like U.S. and China, and those are like the high class or the high performing teams, the middle performing and lower performing. Then they kind of spread them out along these hotels to try to even it out. It's not like, U.S., they're going to get the best hotels because they perform typically the best in swimming. They try to spread it out. And I know our hotel, everyone was upset with how it was doing because food was always not prepared when we got back from prelims.
Right.
And it was, we'd wait 30 minutes there to get food at this hotel. So I think those little things do make a big difference, especially when you're in a different culture, different food. But I'd say on the counterpoint to that, I think especially for the people that have been doing it for a while, I do think going to a different place and a kind of a new venue, like in Budapest, I believe that was a brand new facility. And
so for Katinka to be in a home pool with a home audience, that's great for her. So much
was,
matter. Bruno Fratis to be in Brazil.
Yeah,
that's Cesar.
That's
come
huge.
on.
In Hungary, they are huge swim and water polo fanatics. I haven't ever heard a pool that loud.
Right.
It was going nuts, and it was packed, and it was
Awesome,
great.
man.
So
Katinka Hosu is like the LeBron James, right? In Hungary,
well, absolutely.
if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, it was huge. Even when I was with the China team, they had tons of fans from China get to Budapest and at our hotel, and they were at the venue, and it was, when the main Chinese swimmers swam, they had a huge yell and all that, and the venue really supported it. So I think for the ultra elite, they do get that the new venue excitement. the different city excitement, and just a loud environment like I
Australia's
think
from
any
Wellington,
high performer
Sydney.
will get.
When you think about it from the Olympic perspective too, then swimming being at the front end of the Olympics,
Mm-hmm.
as a swimmer, you sort of have the best experience. Now, the downside is that
Yes.
the opening ceremonies,
Yes, it's the night before the 400
it's the
free.
night before the first events of swimming,
Yep.
and a lot of swimmers, unfortunately, don't get to participate
Yep.
in the opening ceremonies, which
Yep.
is sort of the flagship
It
event
is.
of the Olympic Games, much more so than the closing ceremonies.
Yeah, absolutely.
However, the upside for swimming and swimmers is that
You get a
most
week.
of the time you get to do the 8 days of swimming within the Olympics, or perhaps most people just aren't swimming the full
Unique
schedule.
yeah.
So they do their race or few races, and then are able to sort of hang out, participate, and support other sports and
Yeah.
venues, and sort of check out a little bit more of the culture than perhaps might be the case if you were attending a World
Track.
Championships
Right.
or
Oh, yeah.
another international meet where it's 7-8 days of swimming schedule, and then you're gone. Because
yeah.
I think the point I was getting is that when you travel, does it matter? Does the
Doesn't
location
matter.
matter?
That's what I'm trying to.
Well, one of the big opportunities for seeing different countries and cultures is you hear a lot of swimmers and athletes and former professionals or people who have traveled and been a part of sport for a long time talk about hotel to pool
Yes.
and or hotel to venue or whatever, and that is absolutely the reality with some of these
Absolutely.
events, because you're on the bus, you're on the team bus, and you're at the hotel doing the waiting 30 minutes for the dinner after and then
Yep.
you're up and back forth.
Mhm.
So I think we're seeing a lot more, but one of the big benefits I think in attending some of these events and seeing some of the different locations is if you do have the opportunity to get out and see and experience the culture, it certainly makes the participants all the more worldly, and it builds friendships with others, like we
Right.
talked about before we started
So
recording.
that's a good takeaway. I mean,
Yeah.
like as people are listening to this, what would be a takeaway from you if you had the opportunity to attend an international meet or to go to these venues? How would you take advantage of that without jeopardizing your racing? Like, how would you get to enjoy the culture without jeopardizing your competitive? You wait till it's over, but it's
Typically till it's over.
You don't try the new food. You don't like. I was in Puerto Rico and they serve some very dodgy stuff, and I love Puerto Rico, but I wouldn't try it but I'll wait till it's afterwards. Wait till it's after, but thank you.
Yeah, typically wait till it's over. I mean, I tried. I made a decision at a certain point in my career that I didn't want to just go to. If I was going to have the privilege, and it is a privilege,
Absolutely.
to continue to
Represent your
compete
country
in sport
before-
and represent my country,
Yep.
and
Yep.
just
Yep.
frankly spend a period of my life, under just pursuing athletics.
Right.
Is absolutely a privilege.
Mhm.
And I had the good fortune to do that for a period of time. And I decided that whenever I was going to travel, I was going to travel to places and I was going to see the other things.
Mhm.
And so I always planned a little bit of extra, not always, that's a little overboard, but a lot of times I did plan some extra time where I could afford it and where there
I
were
always
friends
went
of
to the
mine that
pool.
wanted to hang out. We
When
would
you're
do
not
that.
swimming, go to the pool and support your teammates as well. I've been to a lot of international meets, and I that was a big part for me as well.
Huge
To be
team
there.
component to
Massive,
international meets.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It makes it really fun to participate in international competition.
Mhm.
And I think, again, we talked about this before, was building relationships with others who aren't in your core training group, perhaps building, relationships with others internationally. Perhaps they are, you meet friends of friends who are training partners together, and it just, it makes you more worldly. It makes you appreciate the sport a lot more.
I
and,
enjoyed working
it's
with other
fun.
coaches too. Not only other coaches on my national team, but other coaches at other teams who would spend 5 minutes with me looking at my dive. Because I was a teammate from Barbados.
Mhm.
Me and him were diving together, and the teammates coach said, "Oh, Luke, fix this." I enjoyed that as well.
Mhm.
So the camaraderie of this, sharing the skills within the team, working with other national team coaches and other national coaches, that's something you can definitely take advantage of, and you must.
Right.
It's fantastic. Don't you agree? And you worked with some brilliant coaches.
I
right?
do. I
So-
did not enjoy Greg Troy warm downs.
Oh, really quick. What's a Greg Troy warm down?
4 200
2050 short course meters on 45.
Oh
And,
God!
let's just say that I didn't clear lactate. on that
So
one
did you
down.
need a second warm down?
But was that an end of season meet warm down, or was that an in season meet warm down? Because you know that.
No, that was at Short Course Worlds.
So course Worlds
Oh,
when
yeah.
you knew you were gonna take it a couple weeks off to chill afterwards.
Yeah, well, I mean, it wasn't at the end of the meet. At the end, who warms down at the end of the
I
meet?
know.
No kidding. This guy
In
does.
season, no, in season.
Once the meet's done, I'm
Still.
out of there.
You know,
what
not
I-
warming down.
I think I said this in the last podcast. You know what I did in my last ever race? Warmed down to 200, drove across the street to Stan's Donuts. Got a dozen donuts.
I can't believe you warmed down 200.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's
That's
overshooting
200
it.
more yards than I would have warmed.
Swears don't understand that.
I might have done some social kicking at the end, but that's about it.
Exactly.
It was a lot of like stop on the wall. Guys, I made it.
Yeah,
I'm going to go get donuts.
yeah.
So one thing we were talking about is this is circling back and to get a little bit shifted from topics. We were talking about the Olympic order
Yeah.
and how swimming is early on.
Yeah.
And I've never really thought about it. I mean, when we think about the popularity of the sports at the Olympics,
Two big ones.
swimming and track, right?
Mhm.
And I'd say
Similar sports.
maybe
too.
we're biased, but swimming might be more popular. Is it because
Michael
the
Phelps.
interest of human, it's the
Yeah.
beginning of the events that people are most excited at the beginning, so they get that buy-in early versus, and we all know the Olympics go on quite a while. And I know I get the track and field, and sometimes I'm already burnt out because I'm so into swimming.
Mm-hmm.
Do we think that feeds a lot into the popularity of swimming at the Olympics, just the order of it?
That and maybe the superstars that come along with it, right? Would you agree with that or potentially not?
I can't. It has to be a factor.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Reggie said, right after the opening games, everyone's excited.
Yeah.
The Olympics has that huge build-up, and then boom, it's swimming.
Yeah.
It's, let's just call it, human horse racing in a pool. So it's, very clear to understand and exciting in that regard. And like you said, we've been fortunate to have some big faces and names drive it. I mean, obviously Phelps, for the last how many Olympics he's been the
2000.
headliner, right? I mean, for
2004 headline.
yeah.
Kate
So
Ledecky,
they know who he
yeah.
is. It's a repeatable name. It's breaking up Olympic records on top of it.
Certainly, but there's no rescheduling of the games, right? It's predetermined a long period of time in advance, and it's been at the beginning for I don't know how long.
Yeah.
But
So-
why is it? It's quite frankly, it's not the most exciting event to watch live at Olympics.
What?
You watch
Really?
table tennis at the Olympic Games? Oh my God,
Man.
table tennis is insane.
Okay, to be fair,
Okay.
like table tennis is pretty cool to watch.
It is.
It's
Yeah.
mad.
Wait,
You
that
know,
was
like
that was a joke, right?
No,
it's legit.
Swimming live, I love it because I'm a swimmer. But would my mother like it?
Oh man, do we want to get into just why swimming's popular, or get into the ESPN list of the hardest
no.
sports and how swimming's always
But
like
what
a
made
number
swimming
100?
popular? Seriously, is it the marketing? Is it that it was just the
Marketing,
It
good
was the
one.
marketing, or is it they enjoy seeing this? Very simple
Why
in
is
the
swimming
essence from
popular
A to
at the
B.
Olympics?
It's not judged subjectively. It's an objective base. It's whoever gets from this point to that point is the winner, which is the essence of what higher, stronger, faster, further, right?
I think that's a big part of it. It's
It's
like you said, it's
core.
objective, unlike some other Olympic sports. It's early in the programming, and then, I mean, I'm intrigued to know when swimming became one of the first, the first in the programs at the Olympics. But I think it's just built over time as being a Olympic staple. So people get excited about it at the Olympics because this is what they did at the last Olympics and the Olympics before.
How much of it do you think is like sex appeal?
I was going to say, a lot, I'm sure a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the equipment, is minimal,
Minimal.
of course,
Yeah.
always has been.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder if, there's, and it is in other sports too,
Yeah.
wrestling and some others are minimal. Obviously, track and field, that's very form fit, everything.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah.
it does kind of make you wonder, okay, well,
But it's where we want it. All Olympic athletes, we want to achieve those bodies in life,
But then why aren't other events popular? If
there's
that is
certainly
such of
swimming's
interest,
been at
right?
the beginning of the schedule far before I would have
Yeah.
made that argument.
So I
but in
think just
today's
tuning into it right away. I think John, like you're saying, just tuning in right away. Boom, it's there.
And
So you
also,
can start with it.
there are a lot more gold medals to be won. Don't you think?
Yeah, that's a big argument with the Phelps winning
Aren't there like
the
4
Olympic
gold medals a
records.
night
It's-
you can win or something like that?
Because
Yeah,
if you're-
night, how many gold medals can you win?
Yeah. Well, if you're like, say if you're like on a basketball team, right? You can only win one gold
That's
medal.
it.
Yeah,
So, all right, this
Yeah.
game was great, but then that was a group game.
Mhm.
Or this table tennis sport was very exciting, but you just won a group. You got 4 points. But you
Yeah,
got
a lot of
prelim,
medals.
semis, and before it was just 2 races.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It was prelims and finals.
It's not swimming's fault that it's different than a team sport
Yeah,
like
no, not at
basketball,
all.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
But even
That's true.
even track and field, I know they have argued in the past that, with Phelps getting all the hype for breaking the Olympic medal count, it's, they're saying, oh, it's impossible for a track athlete to be able to get that amount of medals due to the diversity of it.
Why?
Well, I think they'll argue that just the events are more diverse than maybe freestyle and butterfly. I mean, if you want to do, what would be a comparison?
Hurdles and sprint.
Yeah, I guess hurdles and sprints would maybe be
Steeplechase and the 8,000. On the 3,000.
How is
someone who
it not a
sprints
fair
into the
argument to say that Bolt could have won the 100 meters and the 110 hurdles?
Yeah, I'm not saying I make the argument, but I'm just saying that's what the track and field, I think,
I just don't think it's a fair argument.
Yeah.
We need a track and field person on.
Yeah,
so
and maybe we don't know.
Some
Yeah,
colleagues on.
definitely.
Bias
Sure.
alert over here.
Well, so
yes, bias alert. We
also-
also okay, guys.
we
we
were
would
talking
know.
a little bit about the investment in games and the investment in an event and whether or not there's return in it. Is there value in it? We talked a little bit about the
Yeah.
sort of the takeaways and do the athletes care? But we see this in professional sports commonly where we're in the Bay Area and we are just seeing that the Oakland Raiders are moving to Vegas. And there's been this long history of the city of Oakland and the Oakland Raiders organization working on facilities. The Warriors are now moving across to the other side to a different county.
Moving.
And so, but this is common, right? Do the cities who, especially if they're relying on public investment, which obviously the Olympics most commonly are, there's very little private investment. There's a huge amount of infrastructure needed to generally build and invest in games. And so, in professional sports, it's a common argument whether or not the city actually ends up benefiting in the long term, or the taxpayers recoup their investment. And generally speaking, not. I'm not a subject matter expert on it, but typically all the things that I've read and heard about that topic is you're sort of investing in the things that make a city great, but not necessarily expecting a financial return.
Right.
And I would see the same thing as in Olympic Games, that you shouldn't necessarily expect a financial return. But we're seeing that in some cases there may be some cities and countries that have far overstretched in those, setting expectations up front, and perhaps how they've sold that investment within their country.
Well, I would love to invite an expert on the topic. If you ever heard this, the historian is going to work right now. The famous Canadian Olympian Richard Pound. You guys know who he is?
Do you just call yourself the historian?
Yes, because that's what you guys call me.
Well,
So-
we self-label use that.
He's accepted it.
Richard Pound. So I'm his son, Trevor.
Let's go by his real name.
Dick Pound.
There we go.
So Dick Pound is
Took me a second to get that
I
one.
guess it's all on the table.
a Canadian Olympic swimmer who went to McGill University, and he is
Which
in
is
the
in
IOC
Montreal, right?
in Montreal, and he was Vice President Richard. Sorry, I don't know your title, but he was
Yeah.
heading for the IOC,
Yeah,
and he was the
very
one who
high up in the IOC.
He negotiated all of the NBC contracts back in the 90s, and he's the one who was one of the starters or the proponents of WADA, and he's very well known in IOC. And I'd love to hear people of that investment and expertise to talk about that and comment on that. Why are the games such big business right now? Why do cities see this as such big business? And why do TV rights see it as big business? TV rights, obviously, advertising dollars.
Huge,
But
yeah.
why do cities pour their hearts and strings into this?
Yeah, and I do.
Seriously, it's
No,
not just
exactly.
tourism.
Like we said, and I wonder if when they are, when you do make a presentation of your city, how much you are presenting the high class facilities and all this, and obviously it plays a part of it.
Yeah.
But do they just oversell and then they figure it out later because they're so focused on just getting the bid? Or what is happening with the committee when they are deciding if they're
I almost think-
trying to be more strategic about where to have it within the whole world to have
Yeah.
some
Where were
diversity
the last
and some
Winter
different
Olympic Games held? Last Winter Olympic Games, where were they held?
Was it Sochi? Was that?
No.
Why are
Well,
we all
that was one
hesitating?
for the-
Why are we all hesitating?
Because we're
We should
summer
know.
Olympic
Yeah.
Games fans. Come on
But
now.
if the point of hosting Olympic Games, one of it is to attract the tourism, get a country to be known, we should know.
Which it was?
I don't know.
Oh,
I
I
don't
thought
know.
I
So
thought
you
you
knew.
know.
I thought
It
South
wasn't
Korea.
Sochi. It was South Korea.
It was South
It was
Korea.
South Korea. Sochi was, I think, before them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was South Korea. So, but that's they say that's a selling point for it. Is it? I would love to hear from both sides of the opinion or people writing on that.
Yeah, I mean, personally, if you know Olympics is gonna be somewhere, does that make you want to go visit it later?
No.
No.
No, I don't think so.
Well,
I mean,
let me interject. I think it depends on the country, to be honest with you.
yeah, I mean,
If I got to be honest, there were a lot of kind of panorama, amazing view shots that they did, and some of the promos for Rio showing Rio and Christ the Redeemer and all this stuff, and I mean that stuff stuck. It does make me want to go to Rio. I'm not going.
You wanted
to
to
Rio.
go. You wanted to go to Rio before that.
But now I have, but I mean, I got to see a lot more of it in the lead up to the Olympics, and that has to be a part of it.
And it was fantastic. It was beautiful.
what is it? I mean, tourism is a big one. Trying to build more national pride in that they are a world-class city.
Yeah.
And then maybe long-term sports development to have these great Olympic athletes there, to have some exposure with your youth population and to build more. I mean, like
I've
I said,
seen the facilities built and what happened to them. So we're not experts in any of this, but we are experts that we are swimmers who took it a very high level and we wanted to go to the Olympics, all of us. And we could comment on, personally, do we matter where in the world we want to do the Olympics? We could be experts in that, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I have to say, like, even so I never went to the Olympics, but watching them, I think is generally very fun to see the national pride.
Chinese opening ceremony.
Oh my God!
Opening ceremony,
and a very typical strong push and increase in athletic performance and results for the home nation.
Yeah. It's a highlight of culture almost. Like they're exposing their culture to the entire world and saying, look, this is our tradition.
Which is what we need more than ever right now in society. We need to see each other's differences and have empathy and understand. And I believe that. So I like that. I love the fact that we understood the Chinese culture.
Yeah, absolutely.
Big time.
Because then what happens, right? We get all these news articles, right? 20 things you didn't know about Japanese culture. That
I can't wait to learn about the LA culture.
Yeah. Well, that might come up maybe in London, England on their newspaper. Like 20 things you didn't know about London culture, Los Angeles culture.
Totally.
Right.
Before we started, we were talking about the Australian swimming team and their performance of late in games versus perhaps the performance in Sydney, and just thinking through no opinion one side or the other necessarily, but what has led to the performance. And the argument was made that in Sydney, of course they had Thorpe and Hackett and a number of athletes. They had, of course,
the
huge
largest live attendance
performances.
at a time.
They had an
seats.
Amazing turnout. Swimming is allegedly the number one sport in Australia.
That's what it felt like to me when I was there.
Fake news.
To our listeners, if you can name the top 5 sports in Australia, we'll love you for that.
and state your case.
Yes.
As to what the criteria are for number 1. Visible sport for sure. But the point is about how does hosting the games affect athletic performance and results. And of course we saw the bad side of that with the aforementioned Sochi Olympics, and of course well documented in the documentary Icarus.
Great documentary.
Outstanding documentary.
So
took a pivot that frankly I actually did want to see. What's the guy's name? Bryan.
I'm no longer. I'm not part of this podcast anymore. I'm walking away.
Okay, let's go on this tangent for a second.
You didn't like the podcast?
Real quick.
No, I loved it, but I don't be associated with it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
If any of you haven't seen Icarus, watch it. If you're a fan of clean sport or have ever watched the Tour de France or know who Lance Armstrong
is a brave man. I tell you that.
Watch it, but one of the takeaways from it, at least for me, that I really wanted to see after the fact was the movie. The movie starts with intention that this guy is going to intentionally
drunk himself
to perform, right?
But he never finishes that, and I really want to see what would happen as a result.
Agreed. They totally hit a tangent, and people were debating with that documentary if that was kind of planned to kind of be how it turned out. I have no idea, but I mean, like you said, it started with that. Then whatever happened, he did that one biking race, and he had. What did he have? Did he just have bike issues? Is that what the issue was? I'm trying to recall what happened.
I don't recall.
It's
but
on Netflix,
I can
right?
relate.
I was talking to one of my friends about this actually a few days ago, and I think she mentioned he's having like bike problems or something like that, so he can finish the race.
I think that's what it was. Yeah.
Listen, don't hate on bike.
He came 14th in that race in France before he was doped, and he said, "Okay, now I came 14th. Let me do
Yeah.
doping for a year.
Yep.
The American scientists did not want to be part of it, but recommended somebody else.
Yep.
And then he went to
Our
compete.
man, you know who was in that
Great-
documentary? We were just talking about him earlier. Dick Pound.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Nice
McGill
visual.
University swimming legend.
We gotta get
I
the
asked
video
him-
camera out
I
here.
really
I-
wish you guys saw that. That was amazing.
I really hope one day I've got a name or a nickname that can be conveyed with sounds. That's
I
outstanding.
raced him. He was like in his 50s. I was in my 20s. I raced him. It was awesome. He's a legend, dude. In his 70s, he went Olympics. Anyway, great.
Yeah, so I mean, I
Respect.
guess I think it's
Yes.
perhaps there's no conclusion to this segment or topic about investment in the Olympics and does it help a city? What are the pros and cons of say hosting the Olympics for the home country, for the athletes, for all the participants? Does the global community love to see a new place? I think obviously you've heard the arguments of both sides, but it's certainly something that we continue to see. We've seen some repeat cities. And then we continue to see some new cities. I guess, personally, on the winter side, there's a lot of cities that I don't know. And frankly,
Yeah.
a lot of it's because they're in the mountains.
Yeah.
And
it's snowing.
but I
and
do
you
have
get
one
in the middle of
fact.
nowhere.
I
they're not typically big cities the
Yeah.
way that a Summer Olympics
Yeah,
is, which
not as
changes the
big.
dynamic for sure.
So I spent a lot of my time in Canada. I have one fact about Montreal I want to say. How
Oh,
many
boy.
gold medals did Canada win at the Montreal 1976 Olympic Games?
You obviously don't expect any of us to know
Yeah,
that
you're the
answer.
historian.
8.
Come on now.
0.
Oh.
How many
really?
did Trinidad and Tobago win?
0.
1.
And what?
Track and field,
Yeah,
100
really.
meters.
100 meters.
Hazley
there.
Crawford, out of lane
Wow.
1. All right, fastest man in the world. So they hosted the Olympic Games and they didn't win a single gold.
I mean,
So sorry, my Canadian friends, I love you. I'm part Canadian, but
but to circle back to, at
we
least
Did they
perform
have
well
a
at home.
like I
yeah, but
said,
did they have a good medal performance? Was it?
Well, I don't know overall. They didn't win any goals. So I just tease them on that all the time.
I mean-
But do we perform well at our home
Are you
Olympics?
saying
well,
gold's the
yeah,
only
back to
medal
that.
matters?
I mean, I know you guys were talking about Australia and how when they were hosting good turnouts and seemingly good
In swimming.
performance.
Yeah.
But Brazil, how did the Brazilians do?
Yeah,
earlier?
yeah. I mean, we had how many finalists How many finalists were there? Bruno came 5th in the 50.
Yeah, not
Who are
they-
like the best Brazilian
Well-
swimmers at the time? Bruno Frates, right?
Cesar didn't make it. did he?
Cesar didn't make it.
Was
No.
Silva, Felipe Silva.
Felipe Silva,
I mean, they're
yeah.
mostly 50 guys.
Back-
A lot of
100
50
back
guys.
stroke.
A lot of
Female
Marcelo
100 back
Chiragini.
stroke.
A
Yeah,
lot of sprinters.
But
there.
Marcelo,
yeah.
they had a relay. It was
Definitely
solid.
sprinters, and then female side.
Yeah, they had the 100 back
Oh.
stroker.
Oh, what's her
Gabriella?
name? Yeah, Gabriel. And then didn't they have
We
another
are-
50?
We are never
freestyle
want to be
somewhere?
experts on knowledge.
Yeah,
and
sorry,
facts.
Brazilians.
Sorry,
I'm trying
Brazil,
to be.
yeah, yeah.
But
Enough
I think,
respect.
but you can't just look at the sport of swimming when you
Yeah.
talk about the uptick in athletic performance.
Mhm.
I mean, your Montreal
Right.
comment was about swimming
It was-
specifically.
No, sports.
Oh, sports in
Oh,
general.
There were no gold medals.
Oh wow.
It's
Yeah.
a sad day for.
There were
Yeah.
no gold medals.
I mean, you
That
have
stinks.
Brazil. How did they do at other sports? Do you recall at all?
I
I think it was overall
and
a poor show.
I'll never forget in Sydney Olympic Games seeing Kathy Freeman, who was Aboriginally Australian, win the 400 meters, and it was the most inspiring thing to see. It was unbelievable. Like she was inspired by a home crowd to win the Olympics.
Yeah.
And wouldn't you be inspired to be swim at home and win something at home? For sure.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
So I'm actually from Atlanta,
Right.
and but in '96 I was born in
But he
1985,
hits.
and I was 11 years old now when the Olympics were in Atlanta. In my
I was
home
trying to
city.
qualify. I was 22.
I certainly, I guess
Historian.
I guess I would say
old man.
I'm certainly disappointed in the fact that I did have the good fortune to go to the Olympic Games. I saw Brooke Bennett and Janet Evans swim the
Unbelievable.
prelims of the 800 free,
Unbelievable.
which is, honestly, I don't remember a lot about it, but I remember being in the stands at the Olympic pool once Georgia Tech, reconstructed what was the open air
It was
Olympic
open.
facility.
It was a cover.
I swam in that pool
open.
many times,
Yeah.
growing up in Atlanta and then swimming nearby at Auburn. But I had the fortune to go to, I went to a couple baseball games, like slight nuances, differences in the sport.
Mhm.
And I went to a USA basketball game,
Mhm.
which
Wow.
I think, I don't know if I recounted in the last episode, but celebrity sightings were Evander Holyfield, who I've seen multiple times in the Atlanta airport, but
He's from Atlanta, right?
From Atlanta,
okay,
there a
yeah.
lot. Of course, saw the second reincarnation of the Dream Team, which the '92 team will say is not actually the '96 team is not the Dream Team, but it was still some
Dream Team 2 is what they're
Dream Team 2,
Not as good.
which was cool. But I did have a Hasselhoff sighting
Yeah.
at the Atlanta Olympics,
He's
which
big
was
in
cool.
Germany.
But what's disappointing though was being in my home city, of course, and as a kid, who knows? Maybe it inspired me to continue in the sport of swimming. Maybe that's the upside I don't necessarily think about.
Yeah.
But I didn't get the opportunity to have a little bit more awareness about the gravity of the Olympics and what it's like to see it and participate in it, and the appreciation for the pursuit of excellence that the athletes put into it. That certainly to me gives me the most inspiration now. But we all have different things that we get inspired by at different points in our life.
My brother tells me the story. So my brother qualified for the Sydney Olympic Games, I think for the 200 and 400 free. And he had been to a couple of world championships before, world university games. He had done some big meets.
Yeah.
And he always remembers telling me, Luke, 200 meter freestyle, I was in the second heat because he was unseeded. And I was a race with Ian Thorpe in front of 20,000 people. He said about halfway through his race, about 200, that's when he realized, oh shit, I'm in a race. I need to start racing. Because he walked on deck, 20,000 people cheering, dove in the water. He went out 2 seconds too slow. He's like, shit, I need to start racing. So go to the Olympics once, fail Olympics. It's a whole new animal. It's not Worlds.
No, it is.
It's not Worlds.
I mean,
and then go to win.
Worlds of Budapest was huge and loud, but I'm sure the TV footage and just the overall atmosphere was different. I mean, because like I said, it was huge because Budapest, water polo and swimming are big, especially with Hungary and swimming right now. I mean, they had Katinka, Iron Lady, wrecking it, who's like a national hero. And they had the young 200 flyer at the time, as well as tons of 200 flyers. Laszlo, and then they had
Laszlo's old though, right?
Yeah, he's been around for sure.
Yeah.
Well, relatively. Come on, people.
Yeah. Come on, not as old as the historian. But so it definitely is a different vibe.
Yeah.
Gitra.
Sorry, Hungary.
Danielle
Goethe.
Yeah, Goethe.
Yeah, Goethe.
Yeah. So I mean, it was a great environment, but I think just the overall, maybe just whether it's the in-person loud or just that it is much more on the world stage and bigger with we talked about the opening ceremonies earlier. That's not happening at World Champs where you have all athletes of every sport. You're walking down the aisle or walking down with Kobe or talking with Kobe in the same hotel room, things like that, where it's just a whole different vibe, right?
So there's certainly a gravity to that atmosphere that you can't necessarily prepare for. But at the same time, that has changed dramatically in the last 20 years. If you go back and watch the Olympic Games footage from '96, it's grainy. You can't make out anyone who's there. I would argue that the majority of the swimming or sporting countries that participate in the Olympics had very minimal coverage. A lot of it was in newspaper. Likely not anything video or social content didn't even exist. And so the awareness of athletes and their preparation for the games, you can simulate and prepare for virtually what it is like in the to be in that environment. And that's very different today than it was.
Correct.
Let's say in '96.
That's right.
And I think I guess I would suppose that benefits the performance of the athletes and better prepares those who have not been in that environment before
That's
to
why we went
know
to
what they're
Panpax.
getting into.
We went to Panpax in 1995 as a test event for the Atlanta '96 Games. We went there to simulate the environment. But it was the closest you got. But you had to. But kudos to the IOC for introducing that lottery system where Eric Eel Musambani could go and experience these things and eventually build something else. The
exposure is big,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think
you work with the Philippines team, John. Talk about that.
Before I get into that, I was just gonna say, just the overall television coverage and footage of everything, and the amount of meets that are international now is way bigger than where it was, 20 years ago, right? I mean, we were talking about how we were watching stuff on the Olympic Channel.
My notion last night.
Exactly. So swimmers are more used to being in front of cameras and being in front of just big stages, whether it's a big stage or maybe it's just their isolated big stage through social media channels like Americans like Cody Miller and Michael Andrew seem to be doing well and things like
But
that.
even not the big meets. You showed me Brandon talking about the Clovis race last weekend. You showed me on YouTube that. You find
Yeah, I mean that was on the Olympic channel.
Was it?
Yeah, it
the
was.
Clovis meet?
Yep, the Clovis meet, part of the what is
NBC
it called now?
coverage,
The TYR Swim Series,
Swim
Pro
Series,
Series.
Yeah. But every single race, you pulled it up on YouTube, didn't you? At the
Yeah,
time?
it was on YouTube, but it was on Olympic channel. So I mean, the footage and the coverage is much larger now, which is great for more exposure and more experience with being able to handle all these larger venues and larger expectations and things like that.
Here's the thing, though. Isn't the preparation a lot different, like doing the walkout and everything like that, different for the Olympics, especially, or would it be different also for like a world champs or a U.S. national meet?
Just in terms of how you walk out for the race.
Yeah, how you walk out
sort of.
because doesn't that change?
ready room,
It does
the
progress the ready room
yeah.
over time.
It certainly does. I mean,
does it
you know,
change
you got
your
the most
performance?
experience,
John,
yeah.
maybe you might have something to say about that in terms of performance timing as well with the warm-ups and all that.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we start to get into warm-ups and expectations, a lot of it is personal preference, in all honesty, and in mental, because you grow up being able to warm up or do your thing and then just go behind the block right away, or whenever you feel comfortable with it. Then even that meets, at least when I swam at sectionals, you start to do the walkout, and even our state meet and things like that. If you're in the top 8, you got to be ready for the walkout at least 5 minutes ahead of time to be able to do it. And then, Brian, maybe you can speak on trials and nationals and those types of things.
Right. Well, I mean, in our last episode, I spoke to the ready room scenario, or the kind of layout at the Olympic trials and in Omaha.
The explosion, right?
Yeah, and I mean, in that setting, there was a downstairs ready room, and then you marched up the stairs to get to, and so they basically had a staging heat. You had one heat that was in the water, you had one heat walking out, and you had one heat on the stairs. So you were, the very different environment, especially, for those who qualified for Olympic trials. Maybe it's your first meet like that, and you're coming from the club environment.
So how many minutes back there do you need to be? 15?
I would always get to the ready room about like 15 minutes before the race.
That was my
10 to
experience
15.
at Worlds. 15.
10 to 15.
See, that'd be perfect for me, like 10 minutes, like 5-10 minutes.
The 3 of the biggest meets in the world, I think, and you've been to 2 of them. Us 3 haven't been to any of them. You've been to 2 of the 3 biggest meets in the world, I think. And I want you to compare what it was like in the ready room between NCAA's finals, Olympic trials finals. I mean, you haven't been to Olympic finals. But what was the ready room like for NC? It's supposed to be the fastest, most intense meet in the world.
Fastest yards meet in the world.
Olympic trials, everything on the line, one night, doesn't matter what you did. What was the differences in your adrenaline? How did you control your adrenaline so you didn't, before that race? How did you train? Did you prepare yourself for what that was going to be like?
Well, I think so. Yeah, I think those 2 are very, very different environments.
Why?
Yeah.
Tell me.
Even though they're one degree apart, right?
Yeah.
Right? Which is amazing how it is such a continue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us how it is a difference.
Well, the Olympic trials, in some ways similar to even short course worlds, which is certainly the little brother or the junior step of the long course worlds, without a doubt. But there are some elements to the short course worlds that are employed at the long course worlds for sure as well. It's just you're not talking about the best of the best who are competing in that meet. When you talk about Olympic trials versus NCAAs, they're 2 very different. I mean, first of all, NCAAs is a team environment.
Even when you have your 53 because you're going for the team win.
It's absolutely. It's
Especially
all about.
Did you care about you getting gold or Auburn getting the 20 points?
Certainly, there's an individual aspect to it. You are focused on your individual performance, but when you talk about like what's the split between your thought process and what you're swimming for, your purpose in doing this race, why you're here, sort of what your support system has been, what your investment has been in it, how you perceive your confidence for your performance you're about to do, that changes everything, and it's all about the team. And now I came from a team when I was at Auburn. Auburn was winning NCAA championships and SECs, and was at the top of the college swimming community. Dominating. And so it was about winning, and it was about contributing to the team, and there was an expectation set that was heavily weighted on what what you were contributing to the team environment. So it's very selfless.
Mm-hmm.
It was fun to contribute to. It was very selfless. As far as how the environment was, I'd say, more intimate. Think about it like going to a concert venue at, let's say, a football stadium or, a large venue where there's a lot of production versus going to, let's say, a small, intimate, smaller setting.
Indie
You're
place.
talking
Yeah.
50,000 versus
Pop
1,500 people in a small setting. That to me is sort of the difference between those who've seen live comedy at, say, like the Comedy Store or something that's kind of small. It's
That's a good way to
intimate.
put it,
You're
like
more
that.
connected to the band and the performer, etc. The environment is tight. That's NCAA's to me. Is it high tension? Yes, but it's a tight network. You don't care about anything outside in the swimming community. In the world, and converse, and along those lines, the world doesn't care. Like
That's
the
true.
world doesn't know.
Yeah, people
It's about what's happening in that room.
And who's
Big
watching
room.
NCs?
Yeah.
But what's happening there?
Parents, swim fans, right?
Outside
right?
at the Olympic trials, there's a big spectacle. The whole global community, or the national community, knows about it. There's some in the global community that are watching that meet as well.
Big time.
And so, and there is no there.
It's
There
all
is,
about yourself too, isn't it?
you could say there's a team dynamic.
in
But
trials.
It is there is a more like a training group
Yeah, I
support
was gonna
system.
say, yeah.
And
If,
you,
if you're in a good group, right?
if you're in a good training group and
You
you
were in
do,
Tennessee at the time, weren't you?
no, that was before I went to Tennessee. So
sorry.
I was training in North Carolina with
So
a
this
Swim
was-
Mac Team Elite.
Sorry.
Okay.
So,
right.
And-
oh wait,
Well, in 08, I was at Auburn.
Right.
In 08, I was at Auburn. That was my better Olympic trials where I made the finals. And in 2012, I didn't. But regardless, the meet is far more professional. Olympic trials feels like a professional meet. It feels like an individual performance meet.
That's interesting comments.
Yeah.
Really?
It does.
Professional. I mean, NC's is run legit, dude.
It's-
2 lane lines impress me always. I mean, they ran.
Olympic trials feels like you are on the professional scene.
but yeah, like you said, just a number. 1,500.
Compared to 15,000 or all around the world.
Well, I was just thinking like
No,
an
no.
example of
No,
what it
no,
would be like.
but
to
I
do.
think that does, because I watch NCAAs and I go, who else is watching this? You look in the stands and I go, oh, here's Simone Manuel's parents. Here's Caleb. It's only parents that are at NCAAs,
Or
right?
alumni,
Versus
yeah.
trials,
Yeah.
it's
Get back to
Boom,
you
boom,
and
boom,
how.
boom,
So
boom.
all that context is great. How did you feel differently? How did you feel putting your goggles on, getting ready to swim at 53 at NCAA finals versus that? How was your journey? Your heart rate through the roof. How did you feel differently, if at all?
I mean, candidly, I really struggled with the Olympic trials.
Yeah.
Because you didn't have that support system. You felt
Was it-
more alone, maybe.
I think it was perhaps being isolated from the support system from the team. I think that I performed better athletically when it was more selfless.
Yep.
Um,
Agreed.
yeah.
Agreed.
That's
We-
not
we can
not
relate to that,
necessarily
right,
Yeah,
guys?
absolutely.
it's not necessarily a humble brag. It's just
No.
It's reality.
We all
That's how
do.
you
Yeah.
felt. That's how
Mhm.
you felt.
And
right?
so-
Cabana
You're
Club,
part
you
of a
feel
bigger
like that. Come on.
purpose.
And then I had to shoulder a lot more of that pressure on myself. My family traveled to be there. They were, there was a lot of personal investment.
You felt that.
Both of the Olympic trials I participated in were after my college swimming career. The first one was fresh off my swimming career. It was satisfactory. It was fine that I was dabbling in swimming. I was just finishing up school. I was still kind of a college swimmer.
You had hair.
Come 2012, I had put 4 years into. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, if we ever do a video
Let's
version,
gloss over that.
if we ever do a video version, I'll take that.
We're getting to this video. Don't worry.
Yeah.
We'll make
So-
it happen.
But by the time the next quad, I spent 4 years. I worked some. I decided that was detracting from my swimming performance. I wanted to commit fully to pursuing the sport. A lot of early professional swimmers are in this sort of boat where you're not making a lot of money, but you're making enough to sort of get by.
Yeah, with
and,
the college
and
kind
you
of mind,
know
lifestyle.
that you're delaying whatever you have as your future life. You're delaying that in effort to maximize on the talent that you have, the time you put into the early part of your life, and you're getting ready to you're just taking that moment in life. There's a lot of sacrifice in that. You're delaying a lot of things. There's people that invest in you in that period of time, unless you're at a point where you can really do well for yourself, and that's getting better in the sport of swimming, but it's not still at the point where all professional quote athletes in swimming are doing well for themselves. There's a sacrifice. And with that sacrifice, outside of the team environment, comes a lot of pressure. And some athletes do very, very well with that. And I'll tell you, like, I trained very well during those years. And I still believe that I have certain performances in me that I left on the table. But I will admit that I really struggled when coming to the Olympic trials specifically above any other meet. Getting there and then being able to channel, calm down, and focus and put my best performance into the pool was a real struggle. And I didn't do that.
It's interesting because I want to talk about the pressures that people put on you, and those who are parents and coaches out there pay attention, because my Olympic trials was the CISC Games in Puerto Rico in 1996. CISC Games, yeah, it was in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and it was my last opportunity to make the Olympic team. And it was a B team for Trinidad. It was 24-1, whatever, 53. And I put everything I could into this by myself. And I showed up there at this meet. I had no coach, no parents, no support. Nobody knew. And I got up in those blocks and I swam by myself. And I didn't make it. I failed. And I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing. But regretting it now, hearing my voice 20 years later, I think it was I think I wanted that pressure. I wanted that support.
So that's the flip side of it.
Pressure is good.
Pressure is good.
I think there's a good balance of pressure, right?
Right.
Like you want a good balance, but if it gets to you, right, that's when things start to go awry.
I mean, it's a right kind of pressure, isn't it? The pressure that says, it's okay, John, you didn't make it. We love you, man. You kicked ass.
Yeah, I mean, this is just bringing up like the most pressure meet I
that
can remember.
Which is?
I remember when I was 14 years old.
14 was the most pressure you can
I
remember?
think so, because I grew up in a small town in Ohio, and I made my U.S. Open cut when I was 14. And this is my first travel meet. Big travel meet. I went to New York to Nassau Coliseum and swam a short course meters.
U.S. Open.
Open meet when I was 14.
Short course meets in Boom.
And when I swam warm up, when I was in my hometown, everyone had lane assignments. My team was in lane 2 and 3.
Yeah.
This meet, there was probably 200 people in each event.
Yeah.
And I could barely get in and warm up. My coach, he wasn't that familiar with such an environment either. He's like, "Oh, John, just get in, do what you can, go stretch in the shower." And I was qualified in the 50 free, and I was in. One weird thing about my hometown, we had summer league or country club league, whatever you call it in the summer. All our pools were short course meters.
Nice.
So when I was 14, I think my best time, my short course meters like 23.9.
Right.
And
that's legit, dude.
Yeah, I 13, 14 was my prime, baby. So I went to U.S. Open with this short course meters. Well, I went with my yards time, which I think was like 21.4.
Right.
Short course yards when I was 14. And then I knew my short course meters time. I went like 24.8, which was slower than this like summer league time. And I remember being so nervous behind the blocks because there's people it's a big stadium. I didn't warm up at all. It was this whole different environment.
Were you by yourself, you felt?
It was me and my coach.
Jeez.
I definitely felt like I was by myself. And I love my coach. He was a great guy.
What's his name?
Mark Davis. He ended up coaching at Miami, Ohio for the head coach for the women's team.
Shout out to Mark.
And he's now at Mason, who has a lot of great young swimmers. But, I think... I was definitely out of my element there, coming from a small town there. And I think it was helpful for me maybe later on, or just with, maybe personal development and things like that, just leadership type of things, being able to, hey, you get up there and you give it your best. And if you...
What could he have told you? How could have things been different for you as a 14-year-old swimmer at that point? What would have been helpful for you?
I really don't know at the time. Maybe if it was just... maybe someone else there to show me the ropes, or maybe just someone telling me this is what you need to do and you'll be fine. But I think at the time it was just him and I were both kind of figuring it out. And when you're 14, you need guidance. And when it was just like, oh, just get up and go. And I was not that developed or that mentally strong to be able to know what to do naturally.
I saw something in George Bovell at age 14. That's when he started swimming, coming to Canada and swimming Canadian Nationals.
And when did he make the Olympics?
He made the Olympics at age 16.
Okay, 16.
Right?
Yeah, okay.
In 2000. And 2001, he was fourth in the world in 200 IM, with 201. Anyway, so when he was 14 years old, he came to Canada. And I remember I was the big brother to look out for him to make sure he was okay. I'm good. He's offering me a beer. And so
I'm going to get Justin a beer one of these times.
He qualified for the finals of the 200 IM. And George was nowhere to be found. And he was 14 or 15 years old. Where was George Bovell? And finals of Canadian Nationals, you walk out, and he didn't walk out. There was George sitting on the blocks behind lane 2, just chilling. He was just chilling. He was just sitting like this, relaxed, like half asleep. And I really think that is one of the ways that he has succeeded in his swimming career. And I look at Usain Bolt right now. Well, sorry, how he used to be. Usain Bolt, I think he trains to be a joker behind the blocks. I think he makes an effort to be the, hey, how's it going? Do the Bolt show. Because as soon as they say, take your marks, you see, look at it right now. Look at Usain's face. Woof. He's badass.
Well,
man.
I do think, I mean, like we said, we're talking about our personal experiences
personal,
and what
How
it
about
is,
you?
but when you're in your small community and you know everyone, I was the guy that was chatting it up behind the block with my buddies.
Oh, you were chill, yeah.
Yeah, because they were my friends. Like we talked about we were talking about before the podcast, how you develop friendships with other countries, maybe when you're elite swimmers. You know, I was good friends because I was from a small club with other elite swimmers from other small clubs.
Yeah.
Corey Chitwood, he was younger than me, but I knew who he was, and these type of guys. But you go to a big meet when you're young, you don't know anyone, right? So I do think that demeanor is a big one in how you're able to keep yourself calm.
You don't realize you're swimming in a race until you're halfway through the race, like my brother in the Olympics. So
yeah, that's true.
Or there's a famous story of Cody Miller right before he won 100 breaststroke bronze medal in Rio. He was so nervous before his race until he got up in the blocks and realized, you know what, I'm here because I love swimming. Now I'm going to remember what that love for swimming was and why I'm here. And it was a journey that got me here, and I'm going to revel in that. And he got on those blocks, and he swam the race of his life.
Can I share? So I shared a little bit about my sob story with the Olympic trials, but I did end up making the finals my first time around in the 50 free. And one of the cool moments, it's probably the best moment that I ever had in the sport of swimming, was I walked out behind Gary Hall. If anybody watched that trials, Gary Hall wore a cape as the godfather of swimming.
Oh,
trying to make his third Olympics.
shadow boxing or something like that.
Yeah, he did some of that.
That was 2004 he won the cape, right?
No, 2008 he wore the cape in the
2008,
trials. He didn't end up making the team that year, but that was the first big swim meet, like truly big swim meet that I had been in. And
well, it's relative though, right?
Yeah.
Well, so certainly.
I mean, you've been to NCs. Was that like?
Certainly, I'd spent 4 years going to NCAAs, but to me,
biggest in your life.
Yeah, to me, it was certainly the biggest meet that I'd been to.
You've been
in
to
my
any
life.
internationals before then?
I did go to World University Games in Thailand the year before,
Which is like a scale down. From the
so
world.
I had
different
I had
feel,
swam
for
on the
sure.
international team, but. And previous to that, I had also been at the Short Course Worlds in 2008 in the spring, in April. But to me, the trials still felt like the biggest meet. And
That is interesting, but many people would argue, Olympic trials is the fastest meet in the world, right?
It felt like the biggest pressure
And
because
many
it was the
people-
most opportunity.
Maybe people argue that swimming at World Shorts or World University Games was the highlight of the career, not going to trials.
Yeah, and I think in hindsight, maybe. Like, I certainly don't.
Yeah, that's a way to put it.
In hindsight, you're probably right, because the things that live on my resume today are my performances at the Short Course Worlds.
What do you put on your resume for your swimming career?
American record holder.
Former world record holder in the Short Course 4x100 and former American record holder in the 50 meter free or 50 meter butterfly.
As an employer, that would catch my attention. That's for sure.
Oh, and I also
Of anything.
I also put team captain of Pan American Games.
There you go. Yeah.
I'm friend of Luke, John, and Justin. Now, but talk about your highlight of that race, and then how do you end up swimming 22:81?
Well, no. So I got 7th at the U.S. in the Olympic trials in 2008, and so I went 22:1. That was the best time. The point that I was trying to make was
way off, Luke.
when you
his 50 fly he swam off the trials,
Oh, yeah.
and he broke the American record a
2009
week or two later.
at
With
Tennessee,
pressure.
right?
That was in 2009. So in 22.9. But the 2008 experience to me was interesting because it was akin to what you were saying about like Cody Miller's experience. I haven't heard him tell that story, but that you suddenly realize, oh, I'm here,
Yeah.
and I'm here in this environment, and everything's okay. And I was in the finals of the 50 free. I walked out, on the pool deck, and there was this moment, especially for sprint events, where there's a lot, everything happens very quickly. So there's a different sort of level of intensity that happens watching the race. Just before we stepped up onto the blocks, and they blow a series of whistles, of course, swimmers know this. Before they blew the whistle to get up on the block, the whole place,
Quiet.
everybody stood up.
Oh.
And when I watched a stadium of people stand up to get excited about a race, I still get chills about it to this day. Anytime I talk about that, because to me, like that was one of the coolest things to just be a part of.
How did you feel?
Because I had grown up in NCAA, so making
Yeah.
fun of 1,500, 2,000 people when you're sitting in an arena, standing,
Parents sitting down,
and you got a
not
chance to make the
finishing.
Olympic. I wasn't going to make the team, but if you had a chance to make the team, and you see that everybody stand up, and it's just the energy in the room, I cannot describe it, and it made me go, "This is fun."
Yeah.
Like this is
we thought
fun to be a part of,
Mhm.
and I got pumped about it, but I was calm, pumped.
That's
And I had a great
why?
race.
Why? Because I mean, I've been physically nauseous on the blocks before. I want to throw up on you before the blocks, being so
On me?
nervous.
Oh god.
Or-
Why are you looking at me? You're gonna throw up on
How many
me?
of you get hiccups
Come
on the
on up.
blocks? We all got hiccups in the
Yeah.
blocks, right? When they go. But how did you maintain that calm and this thing? You know what? I love this revelness. Is this because you experienced the time, or it was just what was it?
Part of it was because I felt like I had nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what changes when you're trying to qualify for prelims or trying to qualify for semifinals, going through your prelim race,
Right.
trying to qualify for finals. By that point, and if I was swimming in the middle of the pool, I mean, Weber Gale won that race with a brilliant swim. There were some good guys who were swimming in that race, and I didn't necessarily believe that I was going to win, and that probably gave me some athletic freedom. If I had felt like I was going to win or had a chance to win, I might would have swum differently.
Yeah.
But in a way, like that freeness allowed me to just let it ride. And I think there's a lot to that. I have to say I have a ton of respect for the people that have a lot on the line and are able to train their brain to say doesn't matter, or they're able to get the most out of their performance and are truly gamers even when the most pressure is on them. And to your point about Bolt, that's what I think is the most impressive about Usain Bolt, is not his ability to have this. I mean, of course he's a gazelle. However,
Turn
his
it on.
ability to
Go
turn
back
it
to
on
turn the
and to
switch.
do it
Guys,
consistently,
yeah.
And then turn it off. Basically.
I don't know how you teach that.
Well,
Look at track and field more often, people. Look at the 100-meter track final. And my friend Arthur Bolden will talk about this. 1996, they had 2 or 3 false starts in the final with Donovan Bailey of Canada. And the people who reacted negatively and who got all stressed out about having false started, they did not have good races. Look at how Donovan Bailey reacted to all these false starts back then. Guys, I'm going to take a quick pause right now while we use the bathroom and check on our recording, and we'll get back to respect for the stuff.
I can get into Brandon Fisher and preparing mental state.
All right, we can pick up a Brandon
Fisher.
Fisher. I'm pausing this a second.
All right, Brandon Fisher's next.
It is what it is, right?
I'm picking
Already.
up debating Max against Chromebooks. All right, let's
Okay.
get back into it, guys.
We're back to it.
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking about different sports and different expectations and things like that, and maybe how the aging curve makes a difference. How in swimming, at least how it used to be, you had one Olympic trials, and how Brian was explaining that was way different than these other huge competitions he competed at. But nowadays, there's a little bit more room for you giving different Olympic trials a go about, because you can swim till you're older.
And you're
Because the
getting
training's
faster.
changed and
Yeah.
things like that. I mean, one athlete that we work with is Brandon Fisher, who made a little bit of noise recently because he dropped 1.4 in the 100 breast and went 59.8.
My former club teammate. I remember when he first walked on deck onto the Stanford deck, 5 in the morning.
And we get some background about him, or what do you know about Brandon?
From what I remember, I just remember seeing this older dude walk on deck, and I'm like, "Who's this bald-headed guy?"
Guys,
like joining your senior
He
group.
probably was 29 at the time.
Oh, he's younger than that. I mean,
Yes.
give some perspective. I mean, he's from
I think he's from Livermore area.
He's from Livermore, the Bay
Which is
Area
Northern
here.
California.
Yeah.
Livermore's where what some company is at.
Fenice is based in Livermore, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Fenice is
And-
based out there, and I think he was maybe like a
He was
whatever 55, 56, 100 breaststroker
somewhat
in
top
high
recruit,
school,
but
so a
not-
pretty
Yards.
good swim. Yeah, 100
yeah.
yards, 100 short course yards somewhere.
Yeah, somewhat top recruit from my understanding, but
Got
not
a
quite.
scholarship
Yeah,
to Wyoming and swam there and did pretty well.
But for him, I think he was not as satisfied with his career. I remember the first thing he told me when I walked on deck, I was like,
What year was this, sir?
2014, I believe, and he said
Okay,
maybe
he
13.
Was 2000. He was 25 years old.
Yeah, maybe
at the time.
2013.
He's your age.
Yeah, no, he's a few years. Yeah, he was my age.
He was yours at the time, and you
Yeah,
thought he was old at the time.
Yeah. So I remember, I'm like, so why are you swimming with us? And he's like, and I remember he looked me dead in the eye, and I'm paraphrasing what he said. I want to not live in regret, basically, because I think he didn't swim as well as he'd like at like an NC2As. Then he didn't swim as well as he did at the Olympic trials, so that's why he came back. And
2012 Olympic trials, probably?
I think it's the 12 Olympic trials, yeah. And then
Did he ever train with Scott Welts?
No,
I think he knew Scott though.
Scott swam. He's from San
He must
Jose.
have.
Yeah.
Scott's from San
Wyoming.
Jose,
Yeah.
but Scott swam at UC
Davis.
Davis.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought he swam at Wyoming. Who
No,
am I
he-
thinking of from Wyoming?
Good question.
Scott Usher.
who swam at
That's
Purdue.
who it
Go
was.
Boilermakers. Scott Usher.
But
swam
there's
with-
like the other guy from an obscure school that I was thinking of. And
Scott
it's
Usher
also
came
named
and
Scott.
came
Okay.
and swam at Purdue with Pajoli for a while.
Gotcha. Okay.
We get into a deep dive there, but anyways.
Yeah. But yeah, and then here he is now. A few years later, he's making best times. Right, I remember he was like for a while just going 104s,
Yeah, I
103s.
think
made
I
his-
could.
he
I
made
think
his
I could expand on
semifinals.
that. Yeah,
So
he made
for-
semis at the 200 breast, I believe,
Trials.
at 2016 trials, which I forget if that was the best time. So Brandon came to us for strength and performance training because Livermore is about an hour away from our current strength and conditioning. and
Aqua Cowboys.
so,
He's
yep.
from it.
Talk about a great swimming name, the
Yeah.
Livermore Aqua Cowboys.
That
Are
is
you
so
kidding
cool.
me?
Yeah.
Alex Silver, shout out to that right there, man. The head coach there. That's one of the
Right,
best
right.
swimming names. But anyways, he
I
swam.
feel like they should have a cheer before the meet that just goes,
Yeehaw.
Yeah,
Or
but anyways,
yeehaw.
so he was swimming at
I
Paso,
want a mascot.
leading
Yeah.
up to 2016.
Yeah.
101.6
betas,
best time.
and he
Yeah.
won a great time. He
2:13.7.
made semifinals, and he always felt like he had more in the tank. This guy that always felt like he had a better swim,
Yeah.
and I was never on him on deck to know
Yeah, you know.
if he was doing like amazing times in practice to warrant it or not.
So at that time, I think that's when we started having a pro group with, BJ Johnson, Carly Bispo, Eugene Godso was on that team. The Dunford brothers might have been on that team.
The musician usually thought so.
Yeah.
Good old Jason and David. All right.
And
He's still
That's
some-
good.
and they were pretty competitive. I
Yeah,
think he
that's
was
a good group.
he's fairly competitive, but he would try to go at BJ a whole lot.
leading up to 2016.
I think at that time, I think BJ was the better swimmer, so I think he got. I can't say for sure, but I think he got more of the attention and more of the social media attention for sure than Brandon did at that time, because BJ made a world championship team in 2013, if I'm not mistaken, and he was on the U.S. national team for a little bit. But Brandon was always in the background. He would make semifinals or a B final, maybe at the end of an A final in like a U.S. national meet, but he never made that big final or big time to make that big team at all. So, but I guess when I went back to school after my gap year, I thought he was done after 16, honestly. But then,
Yeah, he took a few years off, and he started training at our facility before 16 because he was looking for some strength and conditioning work, and in the club that he was at, they didn't have the facilities. I think that boils down to it. They just didn't have weights and things like that, which most older athletes and swimmers are used to. So he was coming to us in strength training, and he had a pretty good Olympics. We were working on a lot of things, working on mental state, nutrition, supplementation, things like that. He swam 16, made semis, and it was okay.
Yeah, it was,
I didn't think he felt.
successful.
Yeah,
Fairly
yeah.
successful, yeah.
I think he was hoping to go maybe 211,
Yeah.
and he 210, 211. He went 212 and made semis. So
Yeah.
not what you want, but it was an all right swim, right?
Yeah.
Took some time off, and after that last Olympics, or that last Olympic trials, we talked about, hey, you're 27 years old. You need to progress your life. You need to
Right.
start moving on. And
Yeah.
the good thing about swimming now is that you can move on and still swim competitively. You can still swim 5 or 6 days a week for 2 hours and work a full-time job, but you need to take that next step because he's not making any money off of this.
Because so I think before 16, he was with that PASA pro team, but then he left because he wanted to go to a junior community college to learn mechanical engineering. And now he has a job. Because I remember during my gap year, one of the things he struggled with, because he was staying in Santa Clara, I think with his grandparents or aunt and uncle or something like that. And he would always say, the one thing right now I'm struggling with is the fact that I've never had a real job in my life. And,
big time. And him and I talked about this a lot, and hopefully this makes the podcast because I'm going to run it by him, because I think, it was a big thing for him just, being able to say he's supporting himself and doing all this and having that self-worth. And I think that confidence for him took time to build up.
Yeah.
Even though he's whatever. I mean, out of high school, like a 5,500 breaststroker, and he went to NCAAs and a great swimmer, right?
Yeah.
But that self-confidence took a lot of time to build up. And I do think him graduating, getting a full-time job, I remember him buying his own first car, and that was pretty recent to this his last big event when he dropped 1.4 seconds and went 59.8 in the 100-meter breast. I think that was a huge thing for him. So I think just building that self-confidence, taking the time for him to develop mentally, physically, all these things, because he's one of the hardest workers I've worked with.
John, at trials he went 1:16.
Yep.
He went out 28.9 and came back in 32.1. At Clovis,
Yep.
he went out 1.3 seconds faster. Came back in the same time.
And Alex Silver has been working with the mechanics
amazing.
a lot, and we've been doing different things in the weight room and giving him different things in the pool, biomechanically and physiologically. And but I will still, even though we made these changes, and I think they make an impact, I think
It's him.
mentally being able
Kudos, Brandon.
to calm himself and be in the moment, as he said in his interview after the race with Rowdy, just being in the moment and being able to race. And kind of like what Bryan was saying at that first trials for him, or that trials when he had a better performance, he didn't have expectations. He was able to be in the moment, able to take it in and perform. That takes a lot. And I remember with my last swims at Big Tens, I mean, my last we talked about this at the last one. I forgot to mention this was on my birthday. So, I mean, it was on my birthday. My mom was there. My sister was there, who was already living in California. All these different things were piling up, but I don't remember those races. Even the 200 free, when I probably should have been doing 200 fly or 100 fly the day before, but I was like, I'm going to do 200 free so I can try and make that 800 free relay. I don't remember that race. I went, dropped 4 seconds, but still didn't make the relay, but just went all out at the beginning. I don't remember it. It was just that zen, or that I was in the zone.
It's almost accepting it's like accepting the moment, basically.
But that's interesting to say that. That happened to me once in my life. My best race of my life. I do remember it.
Yeah.
I remember no pain. I remember saying one thing, it's a mantra. You gotta want it. You gotta want it. You gotta want it. I remember no pain. It flew by in seconds.
Yeah. And Brandon and I,
He talks about that.
I'll confirm that we're all right that you saw this, but we had our post-meet analysis yesterday. And a lot of it was, what were you thinking at the time? Where can we improve? Because he was just rested at this meet. And just 2 days of rest.
Why did he rest for Clovis?
Well, I think it's a big meet for him. He wanted to get it, in all honesty, he did in the interview, he said he wanted to get his trials cut in the 100 breast, which is 103. And he didn't have the trials cut because he hadn't swam in a year and a half. So he needed to make his trials cut.
He hadn't gotten the trials cut, and he went 59.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been 101 in 2016, but he took a year and a half off. So he needed to recapture that trials cut.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And he would have gotten it at Santa Clara the week before, because he went 213 in the 200 breast, but he didn't swim Sunday at the meet just because. So he would have gotten it there. It was the real answer, but it was all right. He would have gotten it, obviously.
5 days ago, he was a third-ranked American breaststroke and 100 breaststroke.
Yeah, but we were talking about how to improve, and it was all right. You're not pushing the first half. You're getting more rest. You're getting better out the block. But most importantly,
He didn't push the first half. He went out at second
he
half
pushed
first.
it. He pushed it too much. It's control.
Okay.
It's control and not overworking his forearms. But it's more importantly, I think, just getting into that state. Getting into that state once. I think it sounds like we've almost all experienced getting in that state. But how can you I as I told him earlier, how has Nathan Adrian gone 48 at every meet? Right?
Yeah.
It's because he can likely get into that mindset and that state, whether you're in the middle of training or you're tapered for it. You can get into that state.
It's not just mindset for Adrian, I don't think.
Okay, I wouldn't say it is for everyone
But
and all that.
Brandon,
But
Some people, it's physical too.
Yeah.
It
It's
is.
a different change.
big time, because we all. I mean,
Did he
I was a
change
big
his
taper
stroke?
swimmer.
Did
Yeah.
Brandon change his stroke
We-
in
we-
the last
a
2
little
years?
bit,
We've
yeah.
changed mechanics and
it's
we've
beautiful.
changed training, some aspects.
He
of
used to
training.
pause up top a lot more.
But he's
from what I
we talked
remember.
about last time I saw him. He's long and lean. He's very, very narrow on his entry, and his back rides really high in the water.
Him and
That's
his coach
fine.
Alex have worked a lot on
It's beautiful.
getting hips up high. Which
Yeah.
hips up driving, as he said in the 50 breast when he went the second fastest time for a U.S. guy this
27,
past
right?
year. It was just legs up and boom, legs up and boom.
Beautiful.
You know, it's just
Beautiful.
getting it going.
Okay, so you talked about the fact that he sort of last episode we talked about sort of the what is the impact on a swimmer or an athlete when the pressure's on versus the pressure's off. Is it good to have a runway at the end, sort of something that you can go safety net of sorts after the meet. But in Brandon, you're talking about the fact that he's let's say figured out what the safety net is, and that's giving him comfort and confidence to be able to swim fast because he's got the safety net sorted, instead of perhaps for other athletes where the safety net is sort of perhaps a negative. So for him, you could say, okay, well, what is it about the safety net of, let's say, his athletic career that's helped him, perhaps maybe that has helped him, figure out how to go fast now and how to just, focus on the moment and swimming, but know that the rest is handled. In a meet like Clovis, where we saw that there's, let's say, probably the least fanfare out of all of the Pro Swim Series meets. It's later in the schedule. It's on the West Coast for a lot of reasons. It's a pretty quiet meet in terms of stardom. He doesn't have a lot of competition at that meet. What do you think how does that affect his mindset as he translates from this meet, knowing what he's established in terms of his safety net in life in general, to go into the big meets at the end of the summer?
Great questions. And I think we might have to post this after the Nationals because I don't want to get in his own head, in all honesty, because I think we talked about these elements today. And hey, it's different swimming, and I think you guys can all agree. It's different swimming in front versus maybe swimming behind.
Right.
As simple as that, right? It's being on and it's different. And I was so proud of him that he had a great 3 breaststroke swims, because I know that first night he probably didn't sleep at all because he dropped so much time. He went from a 101 to a 59,
which is insane for a
but he was
breaststroke.
able to calm it down and get to sleep and still get up and perform. And that's where I think him and I talked a lot about, is just being able to perform no matter what the circumstances. And coaches talk about all the time how there's modifiable variables and non-modifiable variables, and you just have to get up there and perform no matter what the situation is. And I think with him, it was a good environment for him to perform very well, where he was in front, he was leading, everything was rocking. Can you repeat that? Can he get in that mindset? Can he respond when things don't go well? When someone goes out in 26.9, when his goggles break behind the block? And back to I think it's even bigger than what you said about how, he had the safety net. I think it's just different. Being a 30-year-old versus a 22-year-old. And I think the different mindset of, the different personality traits almost. I think he's that swimmer where he's been working his butt off for 20 years. And even though he's been good, he's always felt like not good enough. Yeah. Or he's kind of goofy guy. Yeah. He's not the cool guy. He's the goofy. I'm working. I'm gonna work my butt off, and I hope people pay. It's not like he has that.
You think he's finally in give zero fucks mode?
I think so, or I think it's not even that. Even it's just that
we just upped all PG rating to R.
Yeah, you were the one saying that word earlier, man. You dropped it twice, mother.
Right, for real. I didn't go F word.
But I think with him, and this is where I hope the sport of swimming gets to, because, and we'll talk about this in another episode, where talent ID and being able to predict things in long term, being able to predict someone long term is so hard because people develop at different stages. I mean, I don't want to speak for everyone here, but it's one of those in my head when it's like, I wonder if I would have swam for 4 more years, if my mental state would have caught up for me and my strength and power potential would have caught up for me, what would have happened? And hopefully the sport of swimming getting to a point where, and I think Brandon's an example, and Tony Irvin, and all these people are examples of, hey, you can still swim 10, 15, 20 hours a week and work a full-time job and hopefully still perform and allow some of these other variables to catch up to you so you can respond and perform and reap the benefits of it. And in all honesty and selfishly, we reap the benefits of it as fans.
Where you are, who you're with, where you are in your life. It's swimming is paramount, man. Yeah.
I mean, what's it? How different are you from 21 years old to right now?
Oh, completely.
Right? I mean,
I'm so much more mature and responsible. And you know what? I'm more honest with myself. Yeah. I'm more honest of how much admitting I put into that workout today.
Yeah.
I know, did I really give it my all today? And back when I was 21, I worked hard today. No, I slacked warm up and I just made the time to make the coach happy. But now I'm like, yeah, I already put work in because you know what? Nobody gives a shit but me.
Yeah.
And I already put work in right now.
PG-13 podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, one of our
I
good
wish I
friends, the officer, we'll call him on this podcast, the officer at Purdue used to lap me every day in warm-up at Purdue. And I used to think, God, what an idiot. He's wasting everything at warm-up and
Imagine
going
if
all
he did
out.
that.
But now I look back and I remember hearing stories. I forget who it was, but a USC female, maybe it was Hardy.
Jessica
Who
Hardy.
used to say she used to dive in.
Former world record holder.
Yeah, great
Best
swimmer.
ever sprinter.
She used to just dive in and sprint warm-up. And it was that and I don't know if this is true or not. This is what I heard, but she used to just go in and just give it her all. And I remember, now I look back at that and I'm like, yeah, why wasn't I doing that?
Well,
It's like just putting it all out there and putting it all out there for the whole time and hopefully building up that tolerance, building up that base. But at the time, like you said, you're young, you're dumb, you're doing dumb things.
You
You're
talked
thinking,
about this last time.
conserving energy. I mean,
you talked about this last
Oh.
time, Brian. The 1 year I had my best year is the year I attended every sim practice and I did every single meter I was told. Basically, what did I do? I worked my ass off. And what happened?
Swam fast.
I swam fast.
Mhm.
End of the day, I put more time into doing something harder than somebody else did.
But do you think that the physical time that you put in was more important, or the mental energy that you put in? Not energy, but what you took away from that was the belief that you had done everything that you could have done to perform at your best. And so when it came time, you knew that you had done everything. And so there was no doubt.
The times just came upon you as a surprise. Yeah, you touch your wall, you're like, wait a second, I just made my end of season goal time in practice. Almost. Like it is
that'll build confidence.
I was like,
confidence.
I am not supposed to be doing these times right now in practice. And that came as a surprise. And that's what you've had those races where you touch your wall. I didn't expect to go because we're all very good at predicting exactly what time we did. I could touch your wall and tell you I went 23:94 on a 50 or whatever it was. But touch a wall and not realize how fast you went. That was life changing. That was after a year of my hardest work of my life.
Yeah, I
only did one of those years, to be quite honest. I swam for 40 years. I trained hard 1 year of my life, to be honest.
That's embarrassing.
To be honest. No,
Should've
to be
trained
really
harder,
honest.
Luke.
No,
Yeah.
to be truly honest, where I was like giving my all. How many years did you give 12 months of the year? You follow your coach's program. You put full trust into your coach. You said, you know what, coach? You want me to go 12 ones, holding 90% effort on 140. I'm going to give you everything I can. I don't care what it is. And I did that for a year.
That's an interesting one.
I was completely open.
Actually, the only so I think I learned a lot from this first year experience, and I think I could probably say the same for multiple years of my career. But the first time that ever happened to me was when I was between a junior and a senior year in high school. And my two best friends had made their senior national cut the summer between junior and senior year, where I had certainly hoped to make my senior national cut. So I didn't get to go to long course senior nationals in the summer. And so I spent the next year going, all right, I got to earn it.
Yeah.
And I did. That is the one thing, the 1 year that stands out in my mind. There are other times that I did a lot of things right, but that is the 1 year that I learned that I needed to do things right consistently. And I did things right consistently, and I earned it. And I made my 200 free yards national cut in the spring. And it was a long year, but I trained hard for it and I earned it.
I think that's a nice way to end off this podcast.
Yeah,
At the end of the day, Phelps put more time in doing perfect, hard-ass work than most of us have done here.
Yeah, most definitely.
It is, but I will say this. I mean, maybe we'll get into this another time, but I mean, there's different experiences. I mean, I personally feel like for maybe 4 or 5 year stretch, I put in the hardest work, and then I had maybe 1 or 2 years of moderate work, and then my senior year, I was more focused on school, trying to get into my doctoral program, and I was taking 22 credits and missing a bunch of practice, or more practicing on my own.
Right.
And then I performed my best.
You did.
Yeah, I did. And I think mentally, I think I was getting in my own head, and it was a big mental case, and knowing it was my last meet, and whether I knew it was my last meet, or you guys know how it goes. You have a good first race, what happens?
You just keep rolling it.
Yeah, the rest follows, and you build that confidence, right? I had a good first race, and for whatever reason, and the rest of the meet was great.
Mhm.
Justin, what about you?
I think I actually became the master of flow state, and I was never the best swimmer,
Flow
but
state.
or just finding my rhythm into a meet because I just knew myself. But I remember going to my gap year when I swam for Tony, and I remember Tony Batis for
At
Paso,
Paso.
and I remember the fall was just god awful. I was going to eight workouts, just trying to do the best I could. And I just did not feel prepared, and the last race I did was my conference championship meet, and I blew that completely. I went like plus 40 in my mile, completely cried. Oh yeah, it was rough. And then the 400 IM the day before was like
Sorry to
plus
laugh. That's rough.
yeah, plus 10, and I was like, it was awful. It was the worst racing experience of my life.
But truly, when you put the work in and you really put your heart in, you somewhere like that, didn't you?
So what happened was it's just like I was just mad at that the whole time. So I figured it out, and I remember going to our winter meet, which is up in Washington. So actually, my school went to that meet, and I said, I'm gonna just create a show right now. So the 500 was a little rough.
That's interesting conference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So the 500 was a little rough for me. So I actually went out too fast and then kind of died. But I remember the second day in the 100 fly, I said, okay.
You saw 500 and 100 fly. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So I just said
53 200 fly over here.
I said, calm down. I just told myself, just calm down and just relax. So what I did was I just would get fully clothed after my warm up, relax behind the blocks, step behind the blocks. And I remember stepping on that 100 fly and I just said, let's just freaking go. And then, all of a sudden I went in and it was like, I don't remember what happened. It was lights out. And then the next day, the 200 fly, that was probably the event I was focused more on. And I remember thinking, let's just make this happen again. And it just kept rolling. I don't know what it was, but from that point forward, I think going into the spring of 2015 and the fall of 2016, I was probably at my best. And I don't know what it was, but I think I figured out you got to practice perfect. And you got to work hard and show up to every single practice. But at that point, I think I figured out going to every meet was just do the same thing.
Did you trust the program and did you trust the coach?
Yes, most definitely.
People don't trust the program, man.
I mean, that's huge. I mean,
Yeah.
we'll have a lot of kids come to our facility, and to give some perspective of the Bay Area here, there's a lot of great teams, and a lot of great teams are, maybe only a few miles apart, but it's a long drive, but it's a few miles apart, and I always say you have to believe in the program, and you could have Joe Schmo running the best workouts fit for you, or you could have Bob Bowman running the worst program fit for you. Who are you going to perform better for? Bob Bowman.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. If you're not believing in it and you don't really feel it, it's not going to be the best fit for you.
I remember going back to college, and I think I might have spoken on that a little bit in the last podcast, and I just didn't drop time at all. I think my last conference.
You mentioned that.
Yeah, the last conference meeting, I dropped time, but it took me 4 or 5 years to drop time in a 400 IM. And then.
Well, looking back, why?
I don't know. I think it was me being like, I didn't trust the process at all at that point. I think.
Trust, eh?
Yeah, I had
Sixers.
Yeah. I did not trust the process. Shout out to Joel Embiid. But I felt I was consistent every single all my dual meets. I was consistent for the most part. But the 200 fly, I remember getting up there and touching the wall. I went 209, which I did it. I went 211, I think, or 210 maybe in a in-season meet. I was like, "Are you serious?" And then maybe it's just me not trusting the process and maybe not, enjoying the people around me as much as I could have. But at the end of the day, I think looking back at it now, I think that 14, 15, 16 period, maybe 2018 when I was at King, and I can elaborate that on the next podcast. Those were the best years of swimming. And it's funny, with King, I didn't go to every single practice. I probably swam like 4 times a week. And I actually got better. And yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's also interesting.
Well, and here's the funny thing. My last 200 fly, it was up at UW. It was the same weekend as conference championships. Okay. And I was going to 4 workouts a week. And then I remember showing up to this dinky little 6-lane pool. And I remember going to conference championships to go watch the day before. And I said, you know what? Tomorrow, let's just let it rip and see what happens. So you couldn't warm up in this 6-lane pool. You're cold as heck. So I, again, fully clothed, running down and back in the stands, trying to get warm. I remember going 209, but it was a few tenths faster than when I went the year before. And I was not rested or anything like that. So I think it's just, again, being in the moment or just knowing where you're at that time, maybe. And maybe it's that confidence in myself. But I can't say for
Confidence
sure.
in yourself, man.
And I think I trusted.
Trust yourself.
And shout out to Doug Jang and Michael Brooks at the time. You know, I think I trusted them. And this is no slight to my college coaches, but it's just I think I trusted them and the group at that time a little bit more.
Well, it's amazing how the coaches are individual.
Mm-hmm.
I think simple as that, right? I mean, I remember having great coaches, but different ones connect with you or motivate you. And I think we'll get way into this in other podcasts, how what coaches say to you and what you remember, and maybe reflecting on what it implied. Because I know Bryan and I were talking about it, or Bryan with all of us was talking about it, and maybe what even Dennis said to Sun Yang leading up to World Champs, and how coaches say stuff, and then you look back and Dennis, Coach Terrell, who coached Grant Hackett, who's Sun Yang's coach, who coached in Australia for many years, and you look back and I don't know, maybe this is just the swimmer perspective, right? Is it really that poignant of a comment, or are you reading into it? And what does it mean? And how impactful is it? Because I remember comments. You look back, you remember comments from coaches. I remember comments from other teammates. And it was like, wow, he said that?
Yeah. I have.
And I remember negative comments on
Yep.
that. And I remember getting a comment when I was 15 and go, oh, you're peaking.
Yeah.
I still remember that comment. And it weighed heavy on me.
Yeah, I mean, what we talked about was the example that I shared on a break. I was coached by David Marsh.
Auburn coach at UC San Diego.
Yeah,
right
UC
now.
San Diego now. He's coach of ISL team.
Elite, right?
ISL.
His resume speaks for itself. But
another time.
one of the outstanding moments for me in my experience with him as an athlete and a coach relationship was before the finals of the 4x100 freestyle relay at the NCAAs, where my senior year, I had some great athletes on the relay. Cesar Cielo, Matt Target of Australia, Jakob Ankar. We were probably favored to win, I would say, but heavy competition with some other teams. And the important point about this story to me was what he was actually trying to do to send a message to me as a specific athlete in his program at this point in time, and how messages by coaches get sent to different athletes in different ways. David, to me, in that moment, knowing that there were other athletes on the team who were sort of the stars, in a way sort of wanted to take maybe the pressure off of me, and in doing so before the race, first of all, handed 2 lineup cards. The first lineup card had me going in the middle. And
so he handed you 2 at the same time.
You can't do 2 at the same time.
Right?
So
maybe, I missed that earlier when we were talking about it.
So they shared the lineup card. I think it was probably just before the session that they told us what the order of the relay was going to be.
This was at NCAAs?
At NCAAs.
Where you get the lineup cards at what time about?
Well, I don't know when they have to deliver them, but
when did they show them to you?
To be honest,
4 p.m.
To be honest, I don't remember. Yeah, I mean, so the session started at 7 p.m. I think.
Okay.
So we're having a team meeting at 4 o'clock. Let's say we go to the pool at 4:30 to go get there and warm up and get ready for the session. It's probably a little bit earlier than that, but you get the that's probably about the right timeline.
What pool was that at?
Minnesota. Yeah.
Basketball.
I hated those bulk. I hated the bulkhead. I felt
but I love the pool with the stands on both sides.
Yeah, the dual sided. There's not many venues.
Yeah, I wish it was taller so they could allow more people into the venue. But stands on both sides is a big important thing. I hate the pools that have stands on one side.
I just like pools that have stands.
Just like KCAC. The look of the King County Aquatic Center up in Federal Way. Actually.
Yeah, exactly.
It's actually supposedly it's the same layout between Minnesota and the KCAC.
Exactly. That and Indy, but it's just like a lot bigger. Indy's bigger. But the thing that I remember about what David said to me was, before the relay, originally he had told me that I was going in the middle of the relay, and then maybe 15 minutes before we walk to the ready room, he hands a relay card and says I'm going the anchor leg. I'm going last.
Yeah.
And what David says to me before that race is he looks at me in the eyes and he tells me specifically as an athlete what he wants me to hear. And he says, I want you to nail this start. And for me as an athlete, as somebody who is surprised as a senior by going last on the relay, I had been in the finals of two events at that meet, in the 50 free and the 100 back. But he
100
wanted.
back?
Yeah, I made the
Wow.
finals 100 back. Where'd you
Dang.
go? I'm a 4,600 back
It's
starter.
because he can swim butterfly kick in the water. That's
Yeah.
why.
How many strokes were there?
I don't know.
12?
Jeez.
I don't know, but I was holding a lot of water.
15.
I can swim
15.
short course, 100 backstroke, not long course.
Amen to that.
But he told me, but the reason his message was about focusing on something that he knew was an important message for me as the athlete. And what I took away from that, and I didn't think about it at the time, I thought, okay, I'm going to nail the start because you're in the moment
Yeah.
and you're the athlete. And your coach is telling you a specific direction. You're going to take that direction. You're going to go execute. But reflecting on that moment, it makes me think about the art in coaching and the value in the art of coaching versus the not
Science
necessarily
of it, right?
not necessarily competing against the science, but the fact that coaching is an art, and the fact that as an athlete, in a coach relationship, everything is dynamic. 1 year, one training year is not the same as the next. You could do
Right.
the exact same training program 1 year and have a completely different result the next year.
Absolutely.
And that's why sport is fun, because it is art.
Art. It is.
And
So much is art
Oh,
that we
yeah.
don't want to
so
realize.
much is art, and certainly I appreciate the science of it, and the science definitely benefits the sport, but sport is art.
Yep.
And that for me was an example of that, where that's a little bit of the art of sport, in that my coach was able to deliver a message to me that let me channel my energy toward one thing that I could focus on, that was the appropriate message for me as an athlete. And I think that is the value of a coach who really knows what they're doing, is to be able to understand the way that the way that an athlete of theirs communicates, the message that they need to understand, and
that moment.
and when
At
and
that
how
moment,
to
yep.
deliver it, and what message to deliver.
I hope you all can relate to a story like what Brian has told,
Yeah.
because I've always had this
Same here.
famous story in my head about this, and Brian mentioned exactly how you sum it up. This educated me. Richard Tapper, 1992 New Zealand Olympic 200-meter freestyler with Duncan Armstrong, saw him at ASU with early Major League School, famous ASU coach. Richard came to coach me in 1995, and I remember swimming one of the best races I thought of my life. And it was an in-season drill meet, and I remember turning at the 150 to 200 free, and I'm turning, and I saw Richard, all my teammates cheering, yeah. Richard is standing up there
How did they cheer?
with a
Yeah,
symbol.
Let's hear that again.
Come on, historian.
So Rick Tapper stood up there just doing this symbol, and he just stood there and looked at me, and he had a symbol above his head. And I knew what that symbol was. What do we rate this podcast?
You were cursing already.
Yeah.
Man, we
So,
needed the video up
there
in
was a
here. I already
symbol
did
for
the...
us.
Blurp it out.
For just a
I already did the...
for a little, it was a little girl. Well, he stood up with a symbol saying I was being a big pansy. That's it. And he just stood up there quite quietly doing big pansy. And I was ahead of the field. I was
Elite
swimming where I
sports
thought was
aren't
great.
PG, man. Elite
Yeah,
sports
yeah.
are not.
But he
No,
just
no,
stood there
no.
quiet, look at me, and he knew that I could see that. And he just stood there like this. And I got so pissed off at him because I thought I was swimming so well. But he knew,
Did anyone
that-
else know what that meant, though?
I don't know.
Right?
But
right?
he
That's
knew-
what. That's the connection, right?
Exactly.
He knew
I could
what
do so
to
much
pull on
better.
and what you knew.
The
right?
next year, I
if it
swam the best swim
was
in my life.
PG-13 Justin, he
Yeah.
wouldn't have gotten that.
But
Right?
Right.
to what you said, that I did at the time, I was like, I can't stand you. I'm swimming really well, but he knew I had so much more in me. And the next year, I did, and we won. We swam so well. And Rick Tapper, dude, respect.
Yeah. What do you remember?
I remember in the
Yeah.
spring of 15, this is my last semester swimming for Tony full on. And I remember we had our first beginning season meeting. And, I thought, okay, I'm pretty confident. But I think the thing that, and you talked about art, right? And I think you got to give an athlete that freedom to allow that art to be created. And I think one of the things he told me was, I think you're doing a great job because I think you almost found a plan. And to me, I was like, oh, he sees that. Like, that's what I'm trying to achieve. That's what I'm trying to do. And after that moment, everything made sense to
He
me.
found a plan.
Yeah. And that plan was just my preparation, just that mental preparation. I knew where I had to be, what to do at that moment. I knew, and I just executed.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I became, and I called this in the back of my head, but I would call myself Swim Jesus because I was the master of And this is when I'm feeling myself. And
Tweezus?
New name
Tweezus? Move over, Jesus. Tweezus.
I call myself Swim Jesus in practice and at meets because
In your own head or
in my own
out
head.
loud?
So sometimes
I
I
would
say
love to
to
hear it out loud.
some of my teammates, like if they ever listen to this, like one of my teammates, Daniel Singh, who's a swimmer at NYU, I would tell him, I'm like, I feel like some Jesus right now because I became, because I thought I was the master of consistency because I knew I can go this X time and I can almost predict it. Like I knew what I was doing the whole time. But that's because when Tony said you almost have a plan, it was like, yeah, I got this. Like I have a plan. I know how to warm up. I'm gonna do the same warm up. I'm gonna time my races out right. It was always the same thing. But he let me create my own art, which was one of the biggest confidence boosters, and why he's one of my favorite coaches ever, because he let me do me. But,
Well,
yeah.
that was a great story. I pulled everyone some monkey shoulders, so we're gonna cheers right now to it before I give my last little spiel. And I think that's where we ended tonight. All right, so cheers to everyone. If you're drinking with us, cheers.
Cheers.
Nothing wrong with it. Just have a good time.
Bottoms up.
Oh, the monkey shoulder's good.
Oh yeah.
Monkey shoulder smooth, $29 liquor.
Dang.
In California, it's probably like $12 everywhere else.
All right, John. What's your story?
Yeah, I mean,
It's not so
now we're talking about like the psychological aspect. So I was recruited out of high school, and Purdue was one of my top schools because I wanted to do engineering because who knows why.
And look what happened.
Who knows why? I had an uncle that was an engineer. I was good at chemistry. I was good at math. They said, "Oh, you should be an engineer." So I was like, "Oh, I'll go to Purdue, be an engineer." But they never got back to me because they were in the transition between coaches or assistant coaches, which in America a lot of times assistant coaches deal with the recruiting
That's
process.
interesting. I didn't know that. See?
Yeah, they do. And Bill, who recruited me, he moved over from, I believe, Ohio State. No, he's trained at Ohio State. He might have been at Penn State at the time. He became the Purdue assistant. He was a great guy. I love Bill. And, we watched The Office together. He was a very cerebral guy and was able to dissect my strokes and told me, hey, I know you're good at the 2 fly, but we'll make you a sprinter at Purdue. So that got my attention, and the scholarship money was right and all that. So I was ready to go to Purdue, and I went there, and I had an okay few years. But Bill ended up going to
Bill who?
I feel bad right now. I'm forgetting on his name.
Sorry, Bill.
Bill, sorry, he's out. So he went to Wisconsin and ended up getting his master's in water quality and also pool management and things like that.
Great.
But we ended up getting Jay Agnew, who was from a club team in the area, Yorktown, and Bill called me out, or Jay called me out on all my stuff. He was like, "Hey, you suck at breathing. We're going to do hundreds off the block. We have this new guy, Andrew Walcotton from West Virginia, who's a 4,200 freestyler." Yeah, Bill Weaver. Yes, thank you very much. Bill Weaver. So many apologies for forgetting your name. You were a big aspect on my life. But Jay called me out on all that, and he goes, "John, you suck at breathing, and you're a better trainer than Andrew. You're doing 3 breath 100s on a minute, and you need to hold 46s.
Jeez.
And I'm like, are you kidding me? Come on now. Are you kidding me? 3 breath 100s? I can never do 3 breath 100s.
Here's the best thing is Lundquist.
Are you kidding me?
Lundquist, who's the most accomplished swimmer, just literally looked at John and was like, what?
3 breath 100s.
You go 46?
Yeah, exactly.
From a
He's
push?
like, he goes, no, from a block, if that makes much of a difference. But he goes, John, you suck at breathing. You can only take 3 breaths because your breath is so bad. But, that's what I needed at that time. I needed because I was getting comfortable because Bill Weaver and I, we clicked well. We were, I think, good friends. He recruited me. It was a good connection.
Yep.
But I needed someone to come in and,
Rick Tapper did that to me.
Yeah, to be like, hey, you suck at this. You need to be better at this.
Me a big pansy. Yep.
You're dominating the sprint group because, in all honesty, you should have been a 200 flyer. Someone should have told me that years ago, in all honesty. But he's like, hey, you should be dominating these middle distance sprint sets, like these repeat 100s, these repeat 50s. And Andrew Langenfeld ended up going 19.2 in the 50s.
That's right.
You should be, killing him in the repeat 50 sets. And, I gave him eye rolls and all this at the time, but I really think that's what got in my head that,
Same story, dude.
hey, I needed that push to go these best times, and I dropped about a second in the 50 my senior year, and, I had him for a year and a half as my coach, and I think not only his ability, and I think Justin might attest to this, being able to be positive during hard times, I learned a lot from him because he pushed me, and he said all this, but it was with the you can do it positive attitude.
Yeah.
He never came came to practice not being in a good mood.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And reflecting on it, I think as swimmers you always
I agree.
neglect that. But as you get older, you look back and go, that's amazing.
Yeah.
For an adult to come to practice positive and motivated and all that every day when you're older, you look back and go,
It's
God,
5
they must have been
a.m.
dealing with so much stuff.
Yeah,
Family stuff, life stuff. That was huge.
Yeah.
And, it was one of those, I was like, God, I hate Jay making me doing 3 breath 100s, but he's saying it, smiling, and having confidence in me.
That might have been the difference
That's
between why I improved,
The
though.
coaches.
Yeah, I mean, got me down
The
to 44.0, 100 free, I think. I mean,
Well, respect to coaches and to
Yeah.
swimming. And,
yeah, I
and
mean,
cheers
the
for
psychological
Cheers,
aspect.
you
And,
guys.
hey,
Cheers.
Yes.
as I tell our PT students, you got to blend the art and science of it all.
Mhm.
And even the more we learn, the more we don't know.
Yeah. Well, hats off to us. Social Kick Podcast Episode 2. We'll catch you on the next one.
Cheers.
Cheers, you guys.